Are you feeling a lack of confidence on your frugal living journey? Are you worried that you're not succeeding or you're not succeeding fast enough? In this video, I'm going to give you 20 essential life-changing frugal habits that will help you to conquer your lack of confidence and also to succeed in your frugal living journey. Stick around, you don't want to miss any of these 20 habits. Welcome, I'm Amy, and here at Frugal Over 50, I give you tips and tools for frugal living, all personally tested by me. This lack of confidence is a real thing, and it can really derail your frugal living journey. Let's get to these habits so we can build our confidence together. Number 1, understand what frugal living actually is. There's so many definitions out there and so many lists and so many things that people say you should do. 50 ways to be a cheapskate, 100 top ways to save money. There's so many lists, but what is frugal living? The best definition that I have ever found and that I want to share with you comes from Bola Sokunbi of Clever Girl Finance. Frugal living is the act of being very intentional with your spending. That's it. You just memorize that. Frugal living is the act of being very intentional with your spending. Memorize it. Screenshot this, print it out, put it somewhere where you can see it. And remember, when you ever wonder, what on earth am I doing with this frugal living thing? It's so vague. No, it's not. It's just being very intentional with your spending. Number 2, now that you have your definition, you need to know your why. What is your reason for wanting to live frugally? And for most people, if you're watching this video from a place of confusion, I completely relate. I have been there, and I often go back to confusion. Sometimes we just get lost in our lives and in our frugal living journeys, and it's hard to understand why we're even doing it. Everything is so confusing. It's so chaotic. It's so up in the air. But it's so important to understand what is your deep down, gut level reason for wanting to live frugally. You know that you have it because as soon as I asked you that question, there was a quiet little voice in your head that just popped up with the answer. And I want you to trust that answer. You may want to write that down along with your definition of frugal living because that why, that reason is not going to change. It could be something like, I want freedom. I want to sleep at night. I want peace of mind. I want to leave a legacy to the people who come after me. I want to contribute to my community. It's something that quiet voice in your head has already spoken to you. Listen to it and know your why. Number 3 is so important for us to understand, especially when we're struggling with confidence. Expect changes. Expect that the plans that you make today will not be able to be fulfilled tomorrow or will have to be altered in some way tomorrow. Expect that things won't go as you intended. Expect that things won't go as you wanted. I don't mean by that we have to walk around in life going like, what's next? I don't mean that at all. I mean that we need to make plans and then expect that we're going to have to alter them. Make a plan to go from point A to point B and end up going from point A to point A and a half over here and then over to point A, C over here and then to point Z over here and then finally getting back to point B. Expect that everything changes. It's the one constant in life. Number 4. Build your frugal living confidence by identifying your goals. This is a little bit different than your why. Your why, like I said before, is that quiet little voice in your head that just speaks when you're quiet enough to listen. Your goals tend to be concrete things that you can name, like my goal is to downsize my house and travel more within the next 3 to 5 years. My goal is to retire at age 55. My goal is... You name it. You name it, you list it, you identify it, write it down, keep it in your notes app on your phone. Make sure that you refer to it often. And remember that your why will lead you to your goals. Do you want peace of mind? Maybe you'll get peace of mind by traveling more, or by planting a garden, or by volunteering in your community. You don't know until you start thinking from your why to the expectation of changes to the goals. What do you really want to achieve in your frugal life? I have often had people say to me, Amy, these are not just frugal living tips. These are life tips. I agree with you there, but I don't want you to separate your frugal life from your life. Your life is your life, and you live frugally, or you live extravagantly, or you live in some other way. Since you have chosen to be here and to go on a frugal living journey, I want you to think of your frugal life as just your life. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, as Mary Oliver said, with your one wild and precious life? Now, with tip number 5, we start getting into the nitty-gritty. I want you to identify your largest expenses. What are the biggest things that take a chunk of money out of your paycheck every single month? What do you spend the most money on? You're going to know right away, you think. But if you haven't evaluated this in a while, I want to urge you to sit down with your budget, with your expense tracking, and look at what has taken the most money from you over the last 6 months to a year. What are your largest expenses? In order to live frugally, you need to know where your money is actually going. And it's often going to places that are slightly invisible. And I want to talk about a few of these as we move ahead. Let's go on to number 6. One of the biggest expenses that most people face is housing. Housing costs a lot, and depending on where you live in the world and on how you live, you may discover that housing is one of your largest expenses. And I want you to review it and review your housing needs, review your why, review your goals, review the changes that you're hoping to make, and think about where you want to be in the future with housing. Are you paying the amount that you want to pay for housing right now? Are you living in the kind of place that you want to live? Are you living in the geographical location where you want to live? Evaluate all of these things. Imagine it's a clean slate. And right now, today, you can look at where you live as, do I actually want to be here, or is there someplace that would be better for me? And ask yourself that question as a way to review not just where you are, but how you're going to get to the next step. Now let's go on to another big expense that you need to review. Number 7 is transportation. When we think about transportation, particularly if you live in a country in the world that is very car dependent, where you really have to have an automobile to get somewhere, I would urge you to think carefully about how you're getting where you're getting. Review your transportation needs. Do you have a car that meets your needs? Do you need to get one that is less expensive, possibly without a car payment? I would certainly recommend that. Are you able to give up a car entirely? Are you able to work with public transportation where you live? Are you able to ride a bike? Some parts of the world you can bicycle everywhere you go. Are you able to walk? Examine how much you're spending for transportation. And I don't mean just gas. I mean maintenance and wear and tear on the car and having to think about it and having to save up for a new one or a new used one or whatever it is that you're doing. What is costing you money? And how can you review it so that you can bring your expenses there down? Number 8 can be tough for a lot of people. Review your healthcare costs. If you live in the United States in particular, our healthcare costs are constantly spiraling and constantly escalating. And as we get a little bit older, we often face not just a lack of confidence in our ability to afford health care, but we face health problems. I am on some medications, and if you're in your 50s or older, you probably are too. What do we need to do to review health care? It can be very scary. And I would urge you to take a deep breath, take a drink of a glass of water, sit down and review your healthcare options. Make sure that you understand exactly what is available to you. When you are looking at healthcare for yourself, look very neutrally at all of the options that are available to you through an employer, through an individually purchased plan, through a retirement plan, through Medicare, through Medicaid. Any or all of these options may be available to you. Look honestly at them and find the best way to get healthcare coverage, and look at the healthcare that you need and examine, are you going to the doctor enough? Are you not going to the doctor enough? This is scary, this is tough, but you can do it. I trust you. Take a deep breath and dive into reviewing your healthcare. I'm so glad you're here. If this video is giving you a little bit of confidence and a few new skills to try, I'd like to ask you to give this video a like. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm so glad that you're here. If you've been here for a while and you'd like to support the growth of the channel, you can contribute over at Buy Me a Coffee. The link is down below. Now let's keep going with our confidence-building frugal habits. Number 9 is a huge cost in this day and age: education. Review your education costs. If you're my age or older, you may not have any education costs of your own to take care of, but you may be thinking about younger family members, your children or your grandchildren. What are their education costs? It's scary to think about. Those of us who went to college in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, Education costs nowadays, especially for higher education, are scary, scary high. And I want to urge you to consider that universities actually need your money and they need you to be their student, probably more than you need them. Make sure that you understand how much money you have and how much money you're willing to go into debt for, and make that number really low. For those of us who are a bit older, if we have education debt, it's probably from going back to school to up our skills or to change our skills or to get an advanced degree. And those costs can be quite high. Either look at your own education needs, both financially and educationally, or look at your family members and see how you can help and how you can inspire, how you can help them build confidence as they look at their options. Number 10. Review your retirement. Now, this probably should have gone a little bit higher on the list because I firmly believe that the first paycheck you ever get in your life, you should start contributing towards your retirement. Now, nobody told me that when I was a teenager, so I've made a point of telling my own teenagers that. And in their teens, they have started saving for retirement. You may not have heard a message about saving for retirement, so I'm telling you now. Save for retirement. If you haven't started yet and you're not sure how to get started, I would urge you to talk first to your employer about your options through your employment and take advantage of those fully. Then establish an IRA, either traditional or Roth. Make sure that you get all of the tax-sheltered retirement savings benefits that you can get. If you have not reviewed your retirement savings for a while, now is the time. If you review them a little too often, those of you who are retired, ease off a little bit. Don't look at them every day. There's so many people here on this channel now of so many different ages that I really need to talk to you for your whole lifespan. But there's no part of our lives when we are not affected by the need to save for retirement. So jump into that with confidence, with happiness, and with an idea of wonderful things that you can do when you're retired. Now let's get even more detailed as we move on. Number 11, I want you to think about food and frugal living. This is a big subject because a lot of us come to frugal living with a history of poverty or some kind of food scarcity or some kind of food insecurity. And that can travel with us for our whole lives. I want you to spend some time not just looking at your grocery list and not just looking at your pantry, but actually looking at your family history with food and what you're scared of. Look at your history and look at your fears and identify what you actually need, not out of your history and not out of your fears, but out of where you are right now. But sometimes it's really hard to move forward. For instance, I grew up in a family that always had enough food, but it was often very inexpensive carbs. If we had a chicken, it was expected to last the family at least 4 meals or 4 days. And that was for a family of 4. Some of you dealt with this and you had much larger families and the chicken needed to last a whole lot longer, or chicken was like, ha, we're not having that. You know what I'm talking about. If you come from that kind of food insecurity, it may be that every time you go into a grocery store and you see all of the abundance that is there, you just want to get it all because you're afraid that you won't be able to. And even if it puts you into debt, I've gone through this myself. I've gone into debt for groceries, not because I needed them, but because I was scared that I wouldn't be able to get them later. And this has really been exacerbated by the pandemic and by the various shortages that we have had. It's really scary. So I want you to examine your history and your fears and make a plan for frugal food in your life based on where you actually are right now. Always, always, always start from taking a deep breath and saying, right now, where I am, it's okay. I have enough and I can get more. This is also true of our next habit, household. And here I'm talking not just about the big things about the furniture and the household repairs, but things like laundry detergent and soap and things that it takes to clean your house. These things don't cost very much, but often we feel worried if we don't have enough. I'm about to run out of this. I'm about to run out of that. And of course, with the pandemic, we all experienced the profound sense of worry about toilet paper. And for some of us, that's never totally going to leave. I found myself down to my last couple of rolls a few weeks ago and immediately had to go and get more. And where I live right now, there's no shortage of toilet paper. I didn't need to worry. I didn't have to dash out that minute, but I felt like I did. And these kinds of worries, these kinds of fears of scarcity, I think they're probably built into our DNA to a certain extent, but we have to sit down and talk to them and say, I have enough. I can get more. Here's my plan. If you'd like some more information on how this all works for me, I'd like to share with you my video on 10 frugal living habits that changed my life. It's one of my most heartfelt videos, and I'd love to share it with you. Number 13 is examine what you need with regard to your pets. You want to make sure they're cared for. The most common thing that we do if we're trying to live frugally is we don't allot enough for taking care of our pets. And that's usually one place where we have to be intentional, as Bola Sokunbi would say, by planning a little bit more. And that's okay. Let's take care of our pets. Number 14 is surprisingly similar. Clothing. Sometimes we get out of balance with our clothing. Either we're the kind of people who don't really spend enough and we walk around with holes in our clothes. That would be me. Or we spend a little bit too much and we get too excited about things. And it's important that we look again at our history and our fears and understand that there is plenty of clothing in the world, and there are plenty of places to get clothing that is inexpensive and that doesn't contribute to the world's fast fashion problem, or at least doesn't make it any worse. And do you know how to sew? You can always alter things. You can even sew clothes on your own. There's a wonderful skill to build. But think about your clothing very carefully. It's not just that closet you're afraid to get into. Your clothing is there to help take care of you. Let it do its job by focusing on what you actually need. Number 15, how much are you spending on entertainment? I've been spending a little bit more recently, I have to say, because I've needed a little bit more escape time. And you know what? I've decided I feel good about it. I've actually taken some money out of my personal money that I give to myself with every paycheck and used it to buy another subscription to BritBox, one of my favorite new subscription services. You may be on the other end of it, and you may be reviewing your subscriptions and saying, I don't use that, I don't need that. But wherever you are in your need for entertainment, think about how you can do it frugally and how you can do it in a way that feeds your soul rather than draining you dry financially. Number 16, another thing you do not want to drain you dry is investments. I've talked before about planning for retirement, and this is where I really believe that most of our investments should go. And if we are not maxing out our retirement accounts of all kinds, we don't really need to do a whole lot outside of that. But if you are maxing out your retirement accounts, go ahead and find the best investment plan for you. There are all kinds of resources out there. My favorite person to recommend for all things investment is Paula Pant. Paula has a wonderful podcast and blog called Afford Anything. And if you just Google Afford Anything, you'll get so many wonderful resources. I am sharing this from my heart to yours because I love Paula Pant's work so much. I have been so inspired and so practically helped. And if you want any new information about investments that will help you feel confident and happy about your money, go follow Paula. Number 17 is very simple. I want you to be proud of being frugal. I want you to hold your chin up high. I want you to smile, and I want you to be proud. I am frugal, and I am so happy about it. Make it a source of joy and excitement and wonder even in your life. And this leads to number 18, which is when you need to, take breaks. I don't mean take breaks by going out and spending a whole lot. I mean take breaks away from just thinking about your finances and thinking about your frugal living journey. Go back to that entertainment piece and feed your soul. Read a wonderful book. Enjoy a poem. Watch a beautiful movie. Look at a sunset. Take breaks and just remember what all of this is for so that we can have a wonderful life. Number 19, one of the biggest things that you can do, and I'm leaving it here to last because it's so important, and if you are still here, I know it's because you are hanging on to these tips, and I want you to manage your own personal finances. It's a job that I promise you are up to. You can do it. If you need help with this, I have a referral link down below for a program that I use that has absolutely changed my life. It's called You Need a Budget. I love it so much that I refer to it in almost every video, and I have a playlist about it. But you need to manage your own personal finances. They are not a monster waiting to eat you. I promise they are not. Your finances are here to work for you and to make your life better. And so I want you to manage them. And here we are at number 20. Live your own frugal life. Don't live somebody else's idea of frugal living. Don't even live mine. I'm encouraging you, and I hope that you feel encouraged. I hope you feel happy. I hope you feel more confident as a result of watching this video. I hope it's given you some skills. I hope it's given you some ways to move forward. But go forward from here and live your own life. Make your own decisions. Come from inside your own confident self and live a life that works for you. I have such a wonderful quote for you from the late Howard Zinn, a professor and political activist. He said this: "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It gives us the energy to act." If you're watching this at the time that the video is released, we're living through rough times in the world. And I want you to be optimistic. I want you to be hopeful about your frugal living journey. You can do it. And if you'd like to get even more on how this works, watch my video on 21 frugal living tips for 2021. Very practical, very nitty-gritty, and they will get you where you need to go. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so glad that you are here. Wherever you are on your frugal living journey, take the next step and know that you are not alone. I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye-bye.